not even something that we thought we could do. What do you mean we can just throw the whole timeline out the window? Like, that sounds great. Oh my gosh, we're finally back in business. Parks are open, engagement shoots are back on, wedding planning is back on. The world is slowly getting back to a bit of normalcy. I'm still planning a wedding for October. There's a lot that still needs to be done. That includes figuring out one heck of a timeline. If you don't know who I am, my name's Danielle. I'm the owner of D-Grown Photography down in South Florida. I'm a destination wedding photographer and a DIY bride myself. DIY is do it yourself, and it basically means I'm a crafter. I'm someone who really enjoys doing things herself and having that real proud feeling that I've created this thing that I'm now sharing. DIY'd my entire life. I was a Girl Scout, and it now carries through. I am now planning my own wedding. So you'll see in a video that I'll link somewhere up here with my personalized timeline. I actually have to thank a few of my brides for basically asking all the right questions. When I do a consultation as a wedding photographer, there's a lot of things that I ask in order to make sure that what you really feel is an important part of your day. I want to make sure those things are highlighted in your timeline. The only way I can do that is to know what your timeline is going to look like. As a wedding photographer, I do dictate how the timeline is going to be structured, because there are things like making sure your makeup is done in time for the photography. If I'm going to do your photography at 5 o'clock, you need to make sure that your hair and makeup is done by 4:30. Okay, what time does that mean that your makeup artist needs to arrive? And how much time do you need to make sure all of your bridal party is also ready? I mean, I don't dictate when the sun sets, but that is a big part of your timeline. Do you want to do those romantic sunset photos? Are you doing a sunrise wedding? Are you doing a brunch wedding? And you need to make sure that we capture those beautiful sunrise photos. The timing of the sun is a big indicator, big point in your timeline that we need to make sure we work around. So when I have a consultation with a bride, I ask a lot of questions, and these are things that I'm going to ask you now in order to prepare you for when you do have a consultation with me or your wedding photographer, wherever you may be, and you know, one, why they're asking these questions, and two, the answer to them. Because most of the brides that I talk with, they kind of look at their fiance and look back at me and go, didn't even think about that. First, I do want to make sure that you like the video so that I know that this is something you guys really need and you really enjoy. Make sure you subscribe, because I'm posting videos every Saturday. And make sure to click the link below where I give you a free downloadable. I have created, by request of one of my brides, a wedding timeline planning kit. It's downloadable. It's free on my website. It's just a template to make sure that you can piece together your timeline exactly as you want it to be. If you watch my other video, my timeline has been thrown out the window. I am doing things a little different because I've done so many weddings that I see what I feel would work for me, what will work for my family and my fiance's family, how we plan on doing things, and what's important more than anything to us. There's some cultural aspects. I also want to make sure that photography is a very big part of not only my life, but I want it to be a big part of our wedding. So I have highlighted a lot more photography pieces than someone may normally. Things like a first look between the groom and his mother. It's not something that I see as often in weddings, but is something that we really want to make sure is photographed and is a big deal at the wedding. That's something that I put as a big highlight on my photographer's shot list. The same with on the timeline, I need to make sure I have that sectioned off so that we know the photographer has 20 minutes for the two of them to take these photos and have some time alone, and then we can continue on with the timeline. In the downloadable I created, I basically made it so that this is a cut and paste kind of thing. You know when you're making your seating chart and you have a bunch of circles for the tables and you put some post-it notes all the way around in order to figure out your seating chart for your wedding? Okay, do the same thing, but with the wedding timeline. I leave a bunch of spaces available so that you can fill them in if you come up with something else, or there's something that's maybe culturally sensitive or something that I didn't put in the planning because, heck, I don't know about it. For instance, I once photographed a Russian wedding where they auctioned off the bride's shoe in the middle of the reception. And thank God we knew this was part of the timeline so that we made sure to be in the right place at the right time. But that's not something that I would know to make sure is in your timeline. All of this, I must say, as a disclaimer, is a template. There may be things that don't really go with the flow of a wedding if you're trying to stick with a semi-traditional flow. But heck, if you want to put dessert before dinner, go for it. It's your timeline. No one can tell you anything different. Just make sure you coordinate with your vendors to make sure that's how that's going to happen. These don't have times to them either because that's up to you. As a photographer, if someone comes to me with this template, I'll be able to say, okay, generally, the family photos that we do generally after the ceremony take about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the number of family members you have. If you have a ready-to-go shot list for me, and we've already designated your cousin to be the person to run these people over, and everyone in your family is cooperative, I can do it in 15 to 20 minutes. Generally, that's not the case. So I make sure that in the timeline, that is put there as a half an hour. If we get it done in a half an hour, oh yeah, awesome, we rule. Everyone go grab another drink, wait till the next thing in the timeline. Or move things up a bit so that you have more time later, whatever the case we decide. The worst case scenario is it goes over a little. And we've had other things that we put buffers in your timeline to make sure that if we went over and now we're at almost 40 minutes, well, that's okay. I made sure to put enough timing into the couple's portrait. Really, we don't need an hour because we already took a bunch of photos before, but I put an hour there, so now we can kind of scoosh things along. This is, again, just a template. Let me go through with you some of these timeline planning blocks. So these are the type of photography sessions or the types of options you have to add or subtract to your timeline and to make it as unique and as personalized as possible. Bridal boudoir. If you haven't heard of boudoir before, it's actually a very classy and tasteful, very sexy photo shoot that can be done months in advance, a few days before, the day of your wedding. It's an amazing way to feel beautiful and sexy before your big day. I have a lot of brides who ask for this a few months in advance, and then they can give their soon-to-be husband a little black book as a gift on their wedding morning. I have some who just do it as the morning of their wedding because they're already dressed up in their wedding lingerie. And then it's a keepsake for later after the honeymoon. Then they can keep it in the, nightstand for a later date. The bridal party's getting ready generally is pretty easy to do just before your hair and makeup is done. Everyone's already getting ready. People are touching up. I'm getting the photos of the makeup artist and the hairdresser working with you. I'm getting photos of your bridal party drinking champagne and enjoying breakfast because you need to make sure you eat on the day of. Father-daughter first look, mother-son first look. Those are things that need to be added into the timeline. If you want a first look with every single one of your family members, it's absolutely doable. We just need to make sure that it's put into the timeline properly. Really want to do a generational photo and you want to have grandma, mom, and you. Oh my gosh, if you have great-grandparents, yes, let's make this happen. Let's get them all in one photo in one place together. Before the wedding is always easier because there's not so much chaos. We can pick a location pretty easily. We can even do it in the hotel room or wherever you're getting ready and have a really sweet moment between you and these generations. Most don't even think about, what about the bridesmaids reveal? I would love to walk out to the reaction of my bridesmaids after I've put on my dress for the first time, because none of them have seen me in my dress. It's going to be a beautiful reveal when we've been getting dressed and ready and prepped all morning, and I come out after mom has helped me put on my dress in my beautiful wedding gown and get their reaction, because they're my best friends, and they're the people that I cared enough for to have them stand next to me for my wedding. You do need to make sure you're asking yourself and your fiance, are you going to do a first look? I ask this question a lot, and of course, I'm a big advocate for first looks, but it's not something you have to do. It does heavily dictate your timeline. We can't, of course, get any photos of your full bridal party together when the groom and the bride haven't seen each other yet. Can't do any additional family photos ahead of time to make sure those are taken care of before the ceremony. If you do want to stick to the traditional timeline, it's not a problem, and we will still try and get as much done beforehand as possible, but we still need to take quite a few photos afterwards, which is okay because that's what cocktail hour is for. There's quite a bit, too, that goes into the ceremony itself. Of course, I'm going nowhere. I'm photographing you at your ceremony from beginning to end, and I'm going to capture every smile and every tear. But are you going to do things like have a unity candle or a unity ceremony of any sort? If you're not familiar with what a unity ceremony is, you're going to have to do some digging. There is a ton of amazing ideas for a twist on the tradition of doing a ceremony that is representing the two of you coming together. It's where they do a painting. In Germany, their first act as husband and wife working together is to cut through a log. There are a million different types of unity ceremonies, but this is something you need to know and confer with your photographer. Because if you're going to be doing a painting, I can't really take a photo from the back because then I can't see the painting. So I need to make sure I'm in the right place at the right time, and heck, on a ladder if I have to be, because I want to make sure I'm capturing this beautiful moment that you both have worked really hard to coordinate and put together. During the reception, there's a lot to think about too. Are you going to do multiple first dances? Are you going to do the mother-son, the father-daughter, mother and daughter, father and son? Even if the dances are only 2 or 3 minutes long, they still have to be put into the right order, made sure everyone's where they need to be, and as well, that the photographer and the videographers are in the right place and know where they need to be. Are you trying to take a huge photo with all of your college friends? Even though they're all at different tables, we need to coordinate this. Putting them into your timeline is going to make me accountable, your wedding planner accountable, and you don't need to worry about it later because, God forbid, you forget. You're enjoying your wedding day and probably have had a few drinks. No one would be angry with you for forgetting to take the college photo. I don't want to forget that for you. It's something that means something to you. So it needs to be on our timeline, and I'm going to make sure before the party gets started, before ties have come off and everyone's looking a little ridiculous, let's get the photos done during cocktail hour or the beginning of the reception when there's a little downtime. Do you plan on doing a garter toss and a bouquet toss? Are you okay with having your fiance do a striptease on top of you in the middle of the dance floor at your wedding? Do you plan on having a late night snack? Are there things that you're going to serve? Coffee and donuts late at night? I have lots of questions, if you can't tell. There are a lot of questions that need to be decided before you start planning your wedding. Are you going to have a party bus? Is there going to be a limo that picks you up? Who's going to be escorting grandma and grandpa down the aisle to their seats for the ceremony begins? There are a million little details that go into your ceremony too. Making sure that you're coordinating with your officiant. Oh, it's raining. Making sure that you're coordinating with your officiant to make sure everything that you really want to highlight in your ceremony is taken care of. Excuse the pitter-patter on the roof because the weather is horrible and I really just want to cuddle up into a blanket and start a fire somewhere, even though I don't have a fireplace because I live in Florida. If you have a cultural or a religious tradition, like jumping the broom or breaking the glass, make sure that they're part of your ceremony timeline. It doesn't have to necessarily be too specific. If you have an officiant who's done this before and knows what they're doing and has this kind of already scripted for you, but if you're using an officiant who is someone who's more sentimental to you, if you have a friend who's helping you out being an officiant, they may not know that they need to add things into their ceremony and what to look up to make sure that it's special for you. It's mandatory for my bride and groom to set aside before they go into the reception for 20 minutes with some drinks and some hors d'oeuvres by themselves, just the bride and groom. Because If not, the day will go by way too fast. Most don't think about stuff like that. You won't have time to stop and relax and enjoy it unless it's programmed into your timeline. There's a whole lot of options that I haven't even put into the template because the list could go on for decades. I feel like I will be eternally updating this template because there's so many options on what you can do to make your day perfect. Really, the sky is the limit, and that's what I hope to show more than anything is you really have all the options in the world. You can do whatever you want because it's your wedding day. Just because the tradition dictates that you do things in a certain way doesn't mean that that's right or that that's right for you and your fiance. In our case, I've explained I want to do things different because I cherish the time with my friends and family so much that I don't want to have to worry about wandering reception while everyone's eating. I want to be out dancing and partying with my friends and family. So instead, we're doing a receiving line instead of table photos. What about doing a day after photo shoot? If your day is so jam-packed with stuff, why not just put your dress on again and do a photo shoot the next day at another location with some really cool backgrounds? You're of course going to have the photos of your wedding day, and I of course am going to capture photos of just the two of you, but I don't need to spend an hour doing portraits if we're going to do something the next day, and we can just coordinate to say, let's do a sunrise shoot. Let's hire some horses and go horseback riding down the beach. I don't know. The sky's the limit. We could do whatever you want and make it magical and perfection. Now we're just doing more of what's real and captured in the moment on your wedding day, and we can worry about doing all of the photos that are going to be the artwork on your walls. We can put more emphasis and work on those the next day and spend 3 hours together if you want instead. A wedding timeline also does not need to include all of the things listed. Why not skip cocktail hour? You plan on doing a first look? The point of a cocktail hour is to make sure that everyone has something to do while you're off taking photos. But if we can capture all of the family photos and your first look and your couple's portraits ahead of time, why not just skip the cocktail hour entirely? Let's go straight into a reception. So from your ceremony, you walk out, we go hide you in a corner for 20 minutes so that you can enjoy some peace and quiet. We escort everyone to their tables straight from the ceremony. Everyone sits down, and we introduce the bride and groom. There's no need to mingle and drink. You can do that after when you're dancing and drinking some more. Get to partying. It's your wedding. You can do whatever you want. As you can tell, I'm very opinionated on how all of this wedding stuff works and why in the world we do it. It's very curious to me, all of the traditions that have dictated how we do these things and the backstory behind some of these ceremonies that happen. Most of them are absolutely beautiful and do have a strong cultural tradition or a strong backing that I will absolutely honor and respect and make sure are captured perfectly. But there's a lot of stuff that is just kind of unnecessary. So no matter what you decide, no matter what you want to do, I've got the tools for you. Cut, paste, shred them to pieces. Make your own perfect wedding timeline. If you have any questions, you need any help whatsoever, or heck, you have any ideas or you have any add-ons at all, let me know. Go download below. Have a wonderful Saturday. We'll talk soon.